I was parked across the street, sitting low in my seat, heart pounding like I was about to rob a bank. Except I wasn't casing a joint. I was watching my wife. Through the tinted windows of the boutique co-working space, I could see her, Nina, sitting just a little too close to some guy in a fitted sweater. His hand rested on the back of her chair like it belonged there, and she leaned in toward him, laughing in that light, free way I hadn't heard in months. That laugh used to be mine. My name is Daniel Kravitz. I'm 39. I live in Fairfield, Connecticut, in a modern condo that I guess still technically belongs to both of us, for now. I'd followed her here, not because I'm some kind of jealous nut, but because 2 weeks ago I saw a strange charge on our joint account. $480 for a 3-day pass to this place. I asked her about it, and she rolled her eyes, said I was being controlling. "It's a marketing workshop," she said. "Not everything is about you, Daniel." Right. So here I was, watching my wife's hand rest gently, too gently, on this guy's arm while he scrolled through something on his laptop. Her fingers started tracing little circles on his sleeve, and something cracked open inside my chest. A hard, cold pit started forming in my gut. I couldn't stop staring at them, locked in their own little world behind that tinted glass. She hadn't touched me like that in, I don't even know how long. For months now, she'd been pulling away. Her phone was always face down. She locked the bathroom door. She laughed at things on her screen, but never told me what. And every time I asked questions, she acted like I was a paranoid loser. "You're just insecure," she'd say, walking out of the room with a sigh, like I was exhausting her. But watching her now, the way she leaned toward him, the way her smile curled up only on one side, like it used to when she was flirting, I knew. I didn't need confirmation. I didn't need her to say it. This wasn't a workshop. This was something else. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and started recording. Just a few seconds, her hand on his arm, him smiling down at her. Her lips closed to his ear, saying something I couldn't hear, but didn't need to. Proof. I stopped the video and slid my phone back into my pocket, but I couldn't move right away. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me. I stared straight ahead, watching a man walk past the window, unaware of the disaster unfolding behind it. Then I finally turned away, pushed the key into the ignition, and drove off without looking back. The confrontation could wait, but it was coming. Nina walked through the door like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't spent the afternoon tracing hearts on another man's arm. She didn't even glance at me when she tossed her coat on the entryway bench. I caught the scent of her perfume as she passed, light and sharp, but behind it was something unfamiliar, a different cologne, muskier, not mine. I sat at the kitchen island, phone in hand, divorce papers tucked neatly in a folder, just out of sight. The apartment was still and too clean, like we'd been staging our lives instead of living them. Nina moved toward the fridge, heels clicking on the hardwood. "I picked up sushi, figured you'd want the spicy tuna," she said casually, like this was just another Wednesday. "Who's Bryce?" I asked, my voice low. She paused, hand on the fridge handle. "What?" "The guy from the co-working space," I said. "The one who had your full attention this afternoon." She straightened slowly, then turned to face me, arms crossed, like she was already bored. "You followed me?" I didn't flinch. I tapped the screen on my phone, opened the short video, and held it up. Her smile dropped just for a second before she tucked it back behind that same smug indifference. "Oh my God, Daniel. You're recording me now? Seriously?" "No," I said. "I recorded you. With him." She stepped closer, slower now. "This is exactly what I mean. You obsess over every little thing. You have no ambition, no drive. So instead of fixing yourself, you cling to me like I'm the problem." "Funny," I said, "because I don't remember ambition being part of our wedding vows." She scoffed and rolled her eyes, but I could see her jaw tense. "Where is he?" I asked. "What?" "Bryce. You invited him here, didn't you?" The door to the guest bathroom creaked open down the hall, and a man's footsteps padded out into the room. He froze mid-step when he saw me, like a raccoon caught in the trash. Tall. Designer haircut, too smooth for his own good. "Bryce, was it?" I said, standing. He raised a hand, palms out. "Look, man, I didn't—" "Save it. You knew she was married." Bryce looked at Nina, then back at me. Yeah, I knew." "So how long?" He didn't answer. "Answer the question," I snapped. "How long have you been sneaking around with my wife?" 3 months, Nina said calmly, eyes locked on mine. Maybe 4. Does it even matter? I stepped forward, blocking Bryce's path to the door. You really thought you were going to stroll out of here like nothing happened? He stammered. I didn't want any trouble. Too late, I said. You got it. Nina walked past both of us to the coat bench, picked up her phone, and started texting like we were background noise. Bryce finally found the courage to mumble, I should go. I stepped aside. Go ahead. But don't think you're done being part of this. He looked at Nina once, like maybe she'd defend him. She didn't even glance up. So he left. The door closed behind him, and for a long moment, the only sound was the dull hum of the fridge. Nina looked at me like I was something small and broken. You gonna cry now? Is this the part where you throw a tantrum? I didn't say anything, but I was done crying. I was just getting started. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't demand she apologize or beg me to stay. That was the Daniel she remembered, the one who always backed down when she rolled her eyes, the one who took her silence as an answer. Not this time. I froze the joint account this morning, I said, walking calmly to the kitchen drawer and pulling out a manila envelope. I laid it flat on the counter. You won't be draining anything else. Nina blinked. Excuse me? I also removed your access to the American Express. I've already spoken to our CPA about separating liabilities, and the divorce petition's prepped and ready for filing. It's in here if you want to read it. She scoffed, not even picking it up. Wow, so this is your big revenge plan? Cut off the money and hope I come crawling back? No, I said. This isn't about getting you back. This is about removing you. She stared at me, processing, then gave a cold little laugh. Jesus. You really think this changes anything? You've always needed me more than I needed you, and good luck proving anything in court. I let that hang for a second. Then I smiled. Funny thing about courts, they like documentation. I walked to my office and returned with a slim binder. Inside were copies of the location pings from our shared app, screenshots of text receipts from her late-night Ubers, and a brief summary of our finances, including the private startup advisory board she'd joined last year, the one I helped her get a seat on. I spoke to Damon this morning, I said. You know, the guy who vouched for you when you joined Sorrell's advisory team? He wasn't happy when I showed him the screenshots. She finally looked at me, really looked at me. You're bluffing. Number, I'm not. And by next week, you won't be on that board anymore. They don't tolerate scandal, especially not the kind where you use your position to push your boyfriend's beta app under the table. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. And before you say I'm sabotaging you, I added, remember, I helped you build that reputation. You borrowed mine. I'm just taking it back. You vindictive bastard, she hissed. You're trying to ruin me. For what? Because I wanted something more? I tilted my head. You wanted more? You got more. And now you're getting all of it, consequences included. Bryce, who I thought was long gone, suddenly reappeared in the doorway like he'd forgotten his spine. I left my charger. I didn't even turn around. It's in the guest room. Grab it and go. He stood frozen for a second, then shuffled off. When he returned, I stepped aside without a word. Go ahead, I said, but don't think you're done being part of this. He didn't answer, just bolted. Nina stared at me, seething, her whole body tense with disbelief. You think you're in control now? I leaned against the counter, calm. I'm not trying, I said. I am. It was a crisp Thursday evening when I walked into the cafe, dressed in the kind of sharp, no-nonsense way that made people stop mid-sentence. The place was upscale but trying too hard. Reclaimed wood walls, Edison bulbs, waiters in denim aprons. Nina sat near the back with a man in a navy blazer, her posture perfect, voice animated in that performative, overly enthusiastic way she reserved for anyone with money. I recognized the man immediately. Leonard Ames, early-stage investor and former client of mine. He liked clean deals and didn't tolerate gray areas. I walked straight to their table. Leonard, I said, extending a hand like we were still on good terms. He looked up, confused for a second, then stood out of reflex. Daniel, I didn't know you'd be joining us. I'm not, I said. Just passing through. Nina's eyes flicked up, and in that moment, I saw the exact second her stomach dropped. Her smile tightened. Daniel, what are you? I won't stay long, I said, pulling out my phone. Just wanted to clarify something before you two finalize anything. Leonard raised a brow. Clarify what? I tapped the screen and played a short clip, the video from the co-working space. No audio, just crisp visuals. Nina leaning into Bryce, her hand on his arm, his hand brushing her thigh. Leonard's face didn't change, not at first, but I saw it in his eyes. That flicker of discomfort, that internal recalculation investors do when something smells off. I believe, I said, you recently asked her to head a brand identity campaign for your new platform. I thought you should know how she handles her, professional associations. Nina reached across the table. Daniel, that is completely inappropriate. Don't worry, I cut in, slipping my phone back into my jacket. That's the edited version. The original's in my lawyer's inbox. Leonard adjusted his jacket and turned to Nina, his tone suddenly flat. I think we'll need to reschedule this conversation. I've got another meeting anyway. He didn't look at her again, just nodded to me and walked out. Nina sat frozen, her face pale under the cafe's golden lights. She turned to me, voice low and trembling with rage. You're trying to ruin my life. No, I said simply. I'm making sure you don't ruin mine. She blinked, stunned. Then I smiled, small and genuine, and walked away. This wasn't revenge. It was accountability. The message came in just after midnight. Unknown number, no greeting, just 3 words. We need to talk. I almost ignored it, but something about the tone felt sharp, urgent. I replied, "Who is this?" A few seconds passed. Then, "My name is Maya. I'm Bryce's fiancé." My pulse kicked. I sat up straighter, rereading the words. "Fiancé?" I typed. "Yes." He told me about Nina, said it was complicated. I just found out what complicated really means. You and I should meet, tomorrow if possible. We met at a cafe in Norwalk, far from the sleek places Nina liked to be seen in. Maya wore no makeup, her eyes red and rimmed with exhaustion. She looked like someone who'd just torn their entire world open with their bare hands. She slid a manila envelope across the table before she said a single word. I opened it carefully, half expecting more infidelity. Photos, maybe texts, but what I found chilled me more than any affair ever could. Bank statements, wire transfers, digital wallet screenshots, an account in the Cayman Islands. Company filings under the name Lyric Forge LLC, a shell barely legal, registered using an address I recognized as a P.O. box near Nina's co-working space. And near the bottom, a scanned notarization bearing my name and signature, forged. A consent form tied to a joint trust account. It looked official, but I had never seen it before. "This was the plan," Maya said, voice low and steady. "Bryce told me they were leveraging the system, that you were checked out, distracted, easily manipulated, that Nina handled all the finances, and you wouldn't notice until it was too late." I felt like I was floating outside my body. "How long have they been planning this?" I asked. She exhaled. "About 8 months, maybe longer. He kept saying once the startup money hit, you'd be irrelevant. They were going to siphon from both our savings, fake a crisis, then liquidate and vanish overseas. Amsterdam first, then Southeast Asia. And you went along with it?" Maya blinked hard, furious tears forming. "Number I didn't know about you." He said she was divorced. I thought we were building a future. She pushed another sheet across the table. A transfer authorization. Nina's digital signature this time, sent 2 weeks ago. "They would have gotten away with it," she added. "But Nina got sloppy. Bryce left his laptop open last night. I saw everything." I looked at the documents again. The scope of it hit me like a freight train. This wasn't about a marriage falling apart. It was fraud. Premeditated, calculated fraud. I nodded slowly. "Thank you, Maya. You just handed me everything I need." She leaned back in her chair, arms folded. "Good. Because I'm not done with him either. We didn't shake hands. We didn't exchange pleasantries. We weren't allies by choice. We were survivors of the same wreck. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Plain walls, stiff chairs, no drama, just fluorescent lights and quiet murmurs from the gallery. But that silence? It didn't last long. Nina sat 2 rows ahead of me, dressed in a sleek navy pantsuit, her face done up like she was giving a TED Talk, not standing trial for fraud and infidelity. Bryce wasn't next to her. He was in a holding cell in the courthouse basement. The judge, a tired man with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics, tapped the stack of documents my lawyer submitted. Mr. Kravitz, he said, would you like to walk the court through the nature of the claims against the respondent and third party? I stood slowly. Yes, Your Honor. What began as a divorce proceeding quickly evolved into a criminal matter. I have here evidence of wire fraud, financial misconduct, forged consent forms, and collusion between the respondent and one Bryce Nolan, who is currently in custody. He didn't nod, just motioned for me to continue. So I did. I laid it all out. The joint account withdrawals that didn't match any known expenses, the shell company Bryce and Nina registered together, the document with my forged signature, the offshore accounts Maya had traced and backed with signed affidavits. I even included the security footage from our condo building, showing Bryce entering at night with bags. On nights Nina claimed she was traveling for work. My lawyer handed up printed screenshots, messages, transfers, even the edited co-working space video. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a blueprint of intent. Nina never looked at me, but her composure started to crack when the judge asked her to respond to the forged document. I never submitted that, she said, her voice brittle. This is clearly a setup. The judge turned to my attorney. Did you confirm the notary? Yes, Your Honor. The notary, one Evan Carrington, admitted in a signed statement that he was paid under the table and misled about the document's origin. That statement is included in our materials. And just like that, the room shifted. The judge sat back, silent for a beat. Then, effective immediately, the court rules in favor of the petitioner, Daniel Kravitz. Primary custody of both minor children, sole authority over shared assets, and 75% of all divisible marital property, plus damages totaling $78,000 for attempted fraud. Nina finally snapped. You can't do this, she shouted, standing up. He's manipulating this whole thing. The judge didn't flinch. Sit down, Mrs. Kravitz, or I'll hold you in contempt. Outside in the hallway, I saw Bryce in handcuffs, head low, as two officers walked him past the waiting room. He saw me. For a moment, I expected a sneer, a final jab. But he didn't even blink, just kept walking, silent and finished. Nina stormed out 10 minutes later, pushing past reporters and clutching her designer bag like it held her last shred of control. I walked out into the light, alone, but lighter than I'd felt in years. The damage was done, but this time, it wasn't mine to carry. It had been 6 weeks since the final gavel came down, but the air felt different in a way I hadn't felt in years. Lighter, quieter. I stood near the edge of the archery field in Ridgefield Park, coffee thermos in hand, watching my daughter, Kayla, draw back her bow. She was focused, lips tight, brows furrowed in that determined way she got from her mother. The part of Nina that hadn't been poisoned by ambition or manipulation. The good parts I'd always tried to protect in our kids. Kayla released the arrow. Bullseye. The small crowd clapped. I felt myself smile before I realized it. Beside me, Maya leaned on the fence, hands stuffed into a light hoodie. Her little brother, Connor, was competing in the next age group, a wiry kid with huge ears and the calm nerves of a monk. Maya waved at him as he waved back. You know, I've been coming to these for 2 years, she said. This is the first time I haven't been checking my phone every 5 seconds. I nodded. Feels good to actually be present. She looked over at me and smiled. Small, not flirty, just real. The kind of smile that said, I see you, and I'm not here to take anything from you. My phone buzzed in my jacket. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Voicemail. Nina. 1 minute 43 seconds. I didn't bother listening. I tapped delete before the bubble stopped blinking. She's still calling? Maya asked gently, not prying, just curious. Once a week, like clockwork, I said. Last one was full of crying and apologies. The one before that blamed me for everything. I assume this one's some combo of the two. She's not used to not being in control. No, I said, she's not. I turned to watch Kayla run off the field into her brother's arms, both of them laughing, holding up her ribbon like it was Olympic gold. My son, Jason, 15 and finally taller than me, looked back at me with a grin and mouthed, "She smoked him?" I gave him a thumbs up. There was a time not long ago when I thought keeping the family together meant sacrificing myself. That staying silent, swallowing the betrayal, was better than disrupting their lives. Turns out, the real damage wasn't done when I walked away. It was done when I stayed too long. Kayla waved me over, her cheeks red from the wind and victory. Jason shouted, "Dad!" "You missed it." "No, I saw it," I said, jogging toward them, Maya beside me. "I saw everything." She bumped my shoulder. "Looks like we both got out before the fire really started." "Yeah," I said, glancing down at my kids, whole, smiling, safe. "And we're not going back."